This is Bob Ambrogi, and today we are getting a press briefing about an AI product for case intake called Lexafide. And joining me to tell us about it and show us a little bit about how it all works is Terry Dohrmann, the co-founder and CEO of the company. Terry, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Bob. Appreciate it.
Looking forward to hearing more about this and learning more about what you've built here and what you're doing. I mean, why don't you kind of start by just kind of giving us the background on the company and what you're doing and the product you have.
Great, great. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so I have a bit of a history in legal tech. I was a co-founder at Litify, case management solution business, and was very fortunate to build a great company and a great product in that realm, and exited that business a few years back. And I joke that legal tech is like the mafia; it kind of sucks you back in, can't remember it's once you're in it. But I joke because it was just incredible to see all of the amazing things that were happening with AI and how it was really revolutionizing the industry. I was looking around and trying to figure out where I can kind of jump back in and build for the firms that I knew and some that I didn't, and leverage all that was happening in the technology space to really optimize process and systems and things that were in place at these firms. And I know from, my history and working with the firms that there is a ton that can be automated. There's a lot of repetitive tasks. There's a lot of routine elements in a law firm that, you can leverage AI agents to make better, go faster, be more accurate, drive better results, that kind of thing. So so we decided to launch Lexafide just about a year ago now. And where we focused, candidly, I looked across the industry and I decided to not chase some of the larger providers that were out there and where they were focused, which seemed to be more further down the case life cycle. So dealing with, demand letter drafting and medical record review and contract analysis and things like that, which were, they're all great areas to help lawyers and their staff. But what we decided to do was to really focus on the elements that weren't really being addressed, which in my mind was kind of earlier on in the case life cycle, and also addressing the staff's needs, not necessarily the lawyer's needs, but the needs of the receptionists, the intake managers, the paralegals, the case managers, folks like that, mostly because that area of the business, it really represents up to 80% of the OpEx in a firm. And I think if you tweak those things and make those elements more efficient, you can really impact, not only the output of the firm in terms of revenue and profitability, but also the customer experience. So if folks can get an answer better, they can get in touch with their lawyer or their case manager easier. It really not only increases throughput, but it can enhance the reputation of the firm. So again, we started about a year ago developing, and about now we're coming out and really hitting the market.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that case intake process is one that has been kind of ripe for innovation. As you say, there's so much focus on the later stages of a case and what happens sort of once you've got the case and once you start working on the case, but there hasn't been as much focus over the years on the stage that you're talking about. And, I know that you're, kind of really obviously focused. I mean, you talk about AI and how that's changing things, but, what is it about AI that sort of gives you even more of an opportunity, I think, to kind of innovate in this area?
Yeah, it's amazing. And it seems like you and I have been at this a long time, Bob, but it is really incredible to see how quickly the technology kind of can iterate and improve itself and be employed in different ways. But I think the AI technology that's out there now specifically, you can really train these agents to handle repetitive tasks in a way that's low risk, but could be very high impact. And what I mean by low risk is you can kind of pick and choose the specific workflows that make sense to be innovated upon, such as you mentioned the intake process, or, do qualifying clients that come in and asking a handful of questions just to really see if they're a fit. Doing things like what we built, and we'll talk about it, is a reception agent, an intelligent reception agent. We knew many firms are just getting overloaded with a bunch of calls. And so their receptionists are just literally handling calls and doing physical transfers of calls and looking things up in a database to see who should receive a call, or getting a status update for a case that is nothing more than just receiving a phone call and looking in a system and providing an update, which if you think about from an AI perspective, that's a very simple, straightforward task that an agent can do. And it doesn't really require time or effort on account of the staff. You can really just have the agents do things like that. And not only that, as we started seeing over the past year, 2 years, you can actually increase or better the tone of some of the responses. You can have the actual your firm's approach and your firm's sort of tone and temperature as it relates to certain questions really be deployed. So all that stuff that was happening in the AI world, just more broadly, for us, it meant we can actually tailor this to specific workflows, that firms do every single day, have them go, 5 times faster, 5 times more accurate. And like I said, kind of put time back into the staff's hands to do other things.
And I know, as you mentioned, that you came out of Litify, and are you kind of going after more or less the same sector that Litify targeted in its product, which would be, correct me if I'm wrong, more kind of PI firms, litigation firms, maybe a little bit more broadly? What is the market for this?
We're starting right where I started. I'm not that smart, Bob. I just what we did in Litify, which I think was a really kind of fruitful road, if you will, and it made sense from a chronology standpoint. We started in PI, we kind of evolved into mass torts, medical malpractice, into workers' compensation, SSD. We sort of just kept evolving into the plaintiff side of different areas of the plaintiff side of law. And then from there, at one point, we kind of switched and said, okay, let's start working on kind of the other side of the desk. So we started working with insurance defense firms. We started working with actual corporations, some insurance providers, and then we eventually launched an enterprise product for corporations. So I'm in my mind, I want to follow the same path, because I believe in that PI space, which could be a challenging one, a competitive one, a fast moving, I think you kind of learn your bones. Like, you kind of get a sense of what's going to work and what's not going to work. And you'll have folks that'll make investments with you and kind of learn with you. So I had to kind of map out Lexifide's next few years. It would be starting in this space and then evolving into the others like I did once before.
Yeah. And again, I mean, that's clearly a market where better case intake workflows are desperately needed, I think. So that makes a lot of sense, as opposed to some other areas of law practice which don't need that as badly.
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess one thing I'm kind of wondering is what does the sort of competitive landscape look like for your product? I mean, are there others out there? How do you distinguish yourself from others who are out there?
Yeah, there's certainly others out there. The analogy I like to use is that and I'll name them, the Even Ups and the E's and Stupios of the world, they are out there doing similar work. I'll take it from a broad market perspective. It's a bit of a red ocean out there right now, where I think those providers are all kind of eating each other up and really creating this frenzy, and obviously getting a ton of capital into this space, hiring a bunch of people, doing a bunch of engineering efforts, which is all fine. It's all great and well. But my sense is that they're really trying to be all things AI to all firms. And what I mean by that is I think it's going to be more like a mile wide, inch deep type of approach, a lot of these workflows. So I think a competitive differentiator for us is that we are focused on a handful of areas. And our sense is if we do those really, really well and create a very stable, predictable, productive product focused on intakes. We've kind of evolved even beyond intakes a little bit now in terms of follow-up and things, but hyper focused on a few areas and creating a really, really good customer experience, both from the staff of the law firm and the clients themselves. So it's going to be really super focused on creating those outputs that they want. And then maybe not iterating as quickly in terms of adding new product, but going deeper into those specific use cases and driving more value for the firms. So, I think the other differentiator we're really keyed in on is that we want to help the staff. We want to help we're really thinking about, if I'm the average case manager, like what can I actually provide for that person that's going to drive a lot of time back in their day? The other thing that is organically happening is that because we're doing that, we are allowing the people who are at the firms to be more human. And what I mean by that is because we're automatically sort of filling out fields in their case management solutions. We're capturing all the data. They don't need to do data entry. So we're allowing folks to really have human conversations, with their clients, with other partners, with providers, whatever it may be, and not doing, having the AI actually do a lot of that kind of routine work. So I think our differentiator, it is already, and I think it will continue to be just that hyper focus on driving those types of outputs for the staff.
And what you just said suggests you are, I assume, integrating with some of the other case management platforms that are out there.
Yeah. This is great. By the way, I'll note that Bob did not see any of my material, but he's actually feeding right into it because the other differentiator is a really strong effort around integration. We are not trying to box people out. If anything, we're trying to work with existing systems. I've had arguments with some investors, frankly, who say, well, you're not trying to be this all-inclusive platform. I said, yeah, perhaps. Let's have that conversation in a year or two. As today, my sense is integrating with, a Litify, a Smart Advocate, a Clio, like integrating with these products from a short-term strategy perspective makes way more sense. Just because I've seen the law firms go through the process of installing a new case management solution. I still have the arrows to my back from it. Yeah. I don't see people moving that quickly off. I mean, I know a lot of the other providers are saying they're building a case management solution along with their AI product, but it's going to be tough, in my view, to get people to make those switches very quickly. So the integrations we're focused on, case management, telephony systems. We spent a lot of time really understanding all the major telephony systems that are out there and doing proper hooks into those. And then as well as other marketing systems, other AI providers. Again, we want to play nice in the sandbox here. And, I'm happy to hand our results off to another AI provider who's doing demand letter drafting, for example. Happy to do it. Just because at the end of the day, our focus is on, holistically for that firm, are we driving value? And if we are driving value in the areas that we're focused on, great. I don't necessarily need to elbow out any other provider in the process.
Yeah. So I'll take your lead here. Is there more you want viewers to know about this, or does it make sense to kind of jump into a demo and do a little show and tell at this point?
Sure. I think it does make sense to do that. I think, let me show you just a slide or two on where we are focused, because I've talked so much about it. And then I could show you a bit of a demo here on the product itself. So we are positioning ourselves as really an agentic voice and sort of orchestration product. And what I mean by that is that because the voice piece is a little more obvious. We worked quite a bit, and not to get into too much of our history, but we're part of a portfolio of companies that have a deep history working with call centers, working with banks. So there is an inherent voice product that I was able to kind of leverage that, and then putting it in the context of legal, we become sort of an orchestration agent. And because we're capturing data right from the outset at the intake level, we're able to help kind of orchestrate, what looks like a good case life cycle or good case flow throughout the whole process. But these four are sort of the product areas that are really what we're really focused on right now. The reception piece is really something that we're doing where we're transferring calls. We are really trying to make it easier for clients, partners, adjusters, who the folks that ordinarily call into a law firm to get to the right party quickly. If they are calling in and getting a voicemail, we are syncing again with case management so we can create tasks to do callbacks and things like that. We can have the agents do some of the callback for you. But the whole concept is a lot of and I don't say noise in a pejorative way. I'm just saying a lot of the noise that usually happens right at the front end of a call, we're able to to really process that in a much better way. The way I explain it is that we're an intelligence layer for the Ring Centrals and Dial Pads and Twilios, Zooms, and, name the provider. They tend to have a little bit of a shortcoming as it relates to not only, the way they do those transfers, but the legal knowledge of how they should actually be handled. So that is something that we're doing quite a bit of. Call intelligence is another area that we're focused on. And that's really what I mentioned as sort of remaining human in your firm. Have the AI listening to calls, creating transcripts, creating summaries of those transcripts, doing analysis on them. Were they a good call, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll show you an example of that when I show you the demo. And then the next thing we're beta testing now is prompts. So while someone is on a call, it'll actually prompt the user and say, you forgot to ask for a medical record or whatever the instruction might be. Lead qualification is one of the areas we really started on. And the concept there is, obviously many firms are dealing with multiple campaigns, multiple properties from a marketing perspective. However, that lead is getting into the system. We have people that are just doing one or two simple questions to triage those folks and route them the right way. Some firms are getting a little more aggressive, and they're having the AI agent actually ask a series of questions to really get almost a full picture of what the intake look like. And I'll give an example of that, sort of the latter.
Okay.
When I show you. And then adjuster provider is something specific, just because we found that a lot of the traffic, if you will, inbound and outbound, is adjusters, providers, lien holders calling into the firm, looking for just basic information. Or conversely, if I'm a lawyer and I want to get a hold of an adjuster to try to work out something, the system calling out, dealing with the IVR systems that sit at the insurance agent or sit on hold or whatever, but connect the person live. So you're not wasting time trying to track down some of those folks.
Yeah. Does this replace human receptionists entirely?
No, I don't think so, because you still need to have, I'll give you an example. If you have an unknown number that calls into a firm and it's normal working hours, many firms still want that to automatically be transferred to a human person. And if you think about the logic there, I'm injured. I just got into a bad car accident. I'm not in a great emotional state. I may not necessarily want to talk to a robot as my first YC law firm. So in that scenario, caller ID unknown, we have some of our customers that set it up that boom, transfer directly right to a human. And you want that human to have receptionist qualities and understand sort of, the things. Again, we have some firms who are really trying to go technology forward and have everything really handled on the front end, but most are still tiptoeing into that type of space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll just show you one other quick thing just to give a sense of, other way. Just to mention this sort of the integration piece I was mentioning, telephony, marketing, case management, other A providers are where we're integrating. And then we sit as this sort of orchestration layer across these different areas, getting information out, doing if there is conflicts, understanding them, standardizing some of the data models, and creating these knowledge graphs, if you will. So, you can leverage them across any of those functions on the right side. We're focused more on the data management and assistance and things now. But, the idea being that because we're providing the information from the beginning, firms can use it to really give a good guidance throughout the rest of the case.
Yeah. Are you building entirely off of the voice intake, or are you also, there's also chat interfaces or text interfaces or that sort of thing?
All of them, yeah. The most built out right now is the voice product, voice and email. And we just started doing some integration with chat features on websites, for example. Mm-hmm. And then SMS text is obviously another area that we just started building as well. So just as, again, and it really depends on the firm's preference. We have some firms that are very heavy on text, for example, or very heavy email, and we'll just kind of adhere to what their products are. And I should have mentioned that, and this is clearly a plug for our business, but we're still in that phase right now of development, and I hope to never lose all of this. But we are, as part of our onboarding, we're really understanding what the sort of normal workflow looks like already for the firm, and not being kind of heavy-handed and saying, here's our product, you have to use it the way we dictate, or else kind of thing. It's more, we can do some very, air quotes, easy adjustments to adhere to what the preferences are of the firm as we onboard them. So we're and I don't want to say that we're a services company, but we certainly have the services capability to make those tweaks. And you can see my homepage now, right? The
Casework begins here.
Yep. Okay, great. All right. So this is just our homepage. I'm also going to pull up just so you can see it. This is our Chrome extension. And I just bring this up just to show you that we have some folks who don't want to add another UI necessarily for their users to have to be able to log into. So the Chrome extension can sit tabletop and provide all the functionality that, the homepage would provide. someone works within Litify, for example, and they just want to have this Chrome extension up and prompt questions and get things there, they can do it as well. So anything I'm doing here, I can do either place is the point. Okay, great. So just a quick harbor cruise here. This is the homepage. This is our workflow builder that we've built, and I'm going to show you a personal injury intake. This looks very complicated at first glance, but it really isn't. It's actually just very simple natural language elements that we built out to, kind of if-then statements, decision trees. These are all, and this is actually view 1. We're about to release a second version of this. It's a little more clear, a little more simplistic. But the idea being that we ship the product with templates, and then folks can actually tweak this on their own based on their own needs. So, if I wanted to start a call, I would start a call here. But I can actually, just based on my own needs, build my own workflows. This is a RingCentral integration. It's not letting me override the strap, which is a good thing because I don't want to override the strap.
Are the templates related to types of cases, or what are the different types of templates?
Correct. So just to give you a sense, this is, personal injury is what I just clicked on. We created, and it's just one of our demo orgs. We have an adjuster agent that's built into here, a provider, a social security disability lien holder. These are all just templates in demo org.
Yep.
We typically do is we understand what the initial use cases are for firms that they want to use, and we'll ship it with that. And then as we implement, like I said earlier, we'll tweak based on what their current workflows look like. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I should say, which is I think important, particularly for firms that are just sort of jumping into AI, you don't want to do too much too early. You want to get an understanding of where can you make the most impact. And if it's an intake flow, if it's an adjuster flow, identify that and start with that, and then get some adoption, work with your team. And then from there, you can add on additional workflows, additional use cases, things like that. So it's a very important discussion that I insist that we have early on, like where's the pain and how can we address it? And then we can kind of map out from there what you want to address next. Okay. That comm log is just, as you would say, this is a transcript of all the calls that are here. So you have a history of it. And these could be exported this is synced with Litify, for example, as a case management solution. I'll show you a bit on that later. These are some of the pre-built integrations that we have built already. And then settings, just to show you real quick, this phone number is, I'm going to show you a personal injury intake, but if I wanted to switch that to another one, an adjuster agent or whatever, I would just do it here. Pretty simple to change, what the actual workflow looks like.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I'll show you real quick, just an example of an inbound call, and it'll actually operate as a personal injury intake.
All right.
Thank you for calling Fina Law Firm. This is Alex, an AI voice assistant designed to make sure I connect you with the right person on our team. I just need to grab a few pieces of information from you and we'll transfer you to the best person that can help you. Can I start by getting your full name and a good phone number?
Yes, my name is Terry Dohrmann, 917-576-9788.
Thanks for confirming, Terry. Since you're a new client, could you tell me a bit about what happened so I can see how we can help? I'm calling about a personal injury, an employment issue, or an injury that occurred at work.
Calling about a personal injury.
Okay, Terry, thanks for letting me know it's a personal injury case. To help me understand better, could you please share a little more about what happened?
Sure. I was in Midtown Manhattan and I got rear-ended by a FedEx truck.
Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that happened to Terry. Can you tell me a little bit about the injuries you sustained?
Yeah, I was injured in my back. I have a slip disc in my back and a broken shoulder.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear about your slip disc and broken shoulder, Terry. That sounds incredibly painful. Could you also tell me the approximate time and date when this injury occurred?
Sure. It was January 5th at around noon of this year.
Thank you, Terry. Just to confirm, that was January 5th of this year, around noon.
Got it.
And to complete your information, do I get your email address?
Sure. My email is terry@gmail.com.
Just a moment. Thank you. We've captured everything we need. I'll connect you to a member of our legal team now.
Okay, I'm going to hang up. That is going to transfer me to, I think it's going to transfer me to Tejas, one of our engineers that's in the chat.
Who will be of no help in court, but
Correct. Exactly right. Exactly right. If you notice, there was a transcript that was occurring too on the extension. It was showing the call in place. Now we have that agent set up that we go through a basic intake and then it transfers you to a live person. Where that could end, it could also end that we send an email. It could end that we create a task within our case management solution to create a callback. Really, any number of actions that you want on the other side of that call is a dealer's choice. Really, that is what we built that one for.
I like that it identifies itself as an AI agent right up front, because I've actually seen some that don't, and it's an intentional decision not to identify as an AI agent in some cases. And to me, I think I would worry that would be misleading to a consumer. I don't know.
Yeah. And again, some of the firms have different perspectives on this. One of our clients wanted to be, kind of belts and suspenders. They wanted almost every so often to remind the caller or person we are calling that I am an AI assistant on behalf of XYZ law firm. And there's some TCPA compliance elements that it's a little bit murky, but we're going to err on the side of caution and make sure that we identify and make it known that it is an AI. You want the conversation to be natural, but you don't want to fool. I think and then I think as we get, as we get more and more accustomed to in our own lives working with AI agents and AI voice agents, we become comfortable and we just want, like I said, a smooth interaction, but not to try to trick me. Or if you're an enemy,
Yeah.
word. Okay, cool. So now if I go back to that transcript of the one this was the call I just made, and I wanted to send this data to Litify. There's two ways we can do that. We can actually have it automatically be, as we're kind of filling out fields, name, date of accident, birth date, insurance information, whatever it might be. You can have that start auto-populating into your case management solution. Or in the way this is set up is that we need a human in the loop to actually look at it, review it, and say, okay, send this data into our system of record. So again, it kind of depends on what the firm wants or prefers. And then we would send that data to Litify, for example. This created a summary and it said I was hit by a FedEx truck. Now, what's interesting is that we have some firms that have already picked up on keywords to do things like escalation, meaning if they, rear-ended by a FedEx truck, to me as a firm owner might mean I want to get my best attorney on this right away. This might be a high value case. So there's certain triggers that'll show that this, will send an email, it'll notify someone that, we have a potential case here that should be reacted to very quickly.
Yeah.
But this is, if I wanted to edit this for whatever reason, I could. It actually, just because I've made phone calls in before, it showed my number as potential cases that are in the system already. And then I could just log the call to one of those records.
When that call got routed to a lawyer, and in that particular instance, it got routed to a member of the legal team, whatever the language was, when that person on the legal team picks up that call, do they have that transcript? They have all that information right in front of them?
Yes. They'll have the summary that was just created that you saw. You can actually have that show in front of them, either in the format that Lexafide has, or it could be put into, this is sync with Litify again. So it would be put into Litify. That record would show up and you could say, really either, do you want to view this as the transcript from the call, or do you want to view this as it got translated into Litify? So they pull that up and, I think you just nailed it. The point is you're coming into that call knowledgeable now. Understand what it's about. You have a summary, because I think, we all don't like to repeat ourselves in scenarios like this. And there's nothing worse than going through a whole recording like this and then having to do it again to a live person. So they'll see it quickly and say, okay, this is a personal injury, it's a car accident, whatever it might be. And then, they can actually start, guiding the person the right way. And that's another point is that, our AI is trained to never give legal advice, to never offer anything in terms of, because some people will say, how much do you think this is worth? And the AI will never share any information like that. It's very, very process driven. It'll only say, okay, I can't give you that information, but I can give you to somebody that can. And the other thing I should mention is that I call it a trap door, but I know personally when I'm on the phone with an AI agent, I want to say, live person, give me a receptionist, whatever. If we hear that enough times, we'll actually trapdoor and transfer them to a live person. So the last thing we want is a client to be frustrated by not being able to talk to a live person. So just something to mention.
All right.
I just want to show you this real quick while we're here. I'm just going to show you our call intelligence feature. And really what this is looking at a transcript, which is what this is, a recording of. This is actually a real, it's anonymized, but it's a real transcript from a client call. And what we can do is generate a report. What I'm going to do is ask this to generate an intelligence report on this. I'll click this. It's going to say, it takes about 30 seconds, but what it's going to do is look at the entire transcript. It's going to identify what the agent could have done better. Now, when I say agent, I mean human agent. What did they capture? What didn't they capture? So we have clients that are using this for coaching, for guidance, for best practices.
Oh, interesting.
And as I mentioned earlier, and I could show you a prototype, but one of the things that we're doing is doing live prompting next. So the live prompting is where it would, mid-call, it would tell the human agent to ask for something, they miss something, whatever it might be. But just to show you quickly on this was a motorcycle accident summarized through this call. It was a strong call, and the completion score was 85% complete. You can see some of the strengths, some of the gaps. And so the caller obviously has, they shared what was going on. The agent in this scenario did a pretty good job of getting all the information. But if I'm, an intake manager and speaking with my folks, I can use this to guide them and say, hey, next time, let's do a better job of showing empathy, whatever it might be, because the AI is getting smarter and smarter at picking up what makes an actual good intake call in terms of comprehensiveness, sharing the right types of sort of emotional support. All of those items are part of what we're creating in terms of our intelligence report. So very useful.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Every time I generate an intelligence report, am I going to get the same sections and categories and headings and all of that? I mean, is this a sort of a templated form that builds off of the call?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then over time, you have the ability to tweak that if you'd like. Meaning if, you're starting a new campaign and it's, a specific type of injury, or for some mass tort firms, for example, they're trying to capture, they want to start identifying trends, and maybe those trends shift a little bit. You could teach the AI like what does make a good call in that scenario, and it'll start adjusting or you can entirely replace the template if you wanted to. But for the most part, they're structured, in a pretty straightforward way. Call strengths, weaknesses, missing gaps, things like that.
All right.
Okay. Last thing I just wanted to share, and it's just an idea of some of the what we're seeing on the reception front, because a lot of what we're doing is really about connecting clients with the right people within the firm, eliminating some of the noise, as I mentioned earlier. So this is just an example of a dashboard of all of the sort of progress that we're making in terms of the calls. This is just a prototype of what I mentioned of in-call prompting. So it's asking for first name. In this scenario, the AI would be listening, asking for those additional items. Now, do we want to go into our case management solution and create a new party? Do we want to create an intake? Again, just sort of a prototype of how this is going to look in terms of, giving that live feed. And then again, this is just this would be sort of more of a dashboard of how the agents are behaving, what are they assigned to, what are the tasks they're actually accomplishing. And then this is a prototype. And one of the thoughts here is to actually use the Anthropic's new backbone to answer some basic legal questions as part of our prompting. So we're folding that into our offering where, we can leverage the sort of organically or universally accepted legal AI agents to answer questions if need be. So we're constantly evolving the product and trying to bring the best to bear. I mean, one of the advantages of being a new company is that we hold into legacy technology. So when new LLMs come out or new databases, new offerings, even some of the voice agents that we're using, we're leveraging some of the best of breed out there in terms of the voice themselves, how they interact So every day we're looking for ways to improve the customer experience, staff experience, all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Are you using multiple models here? Which of the
Yes.
models are, yeah.
Yeah, Tropical, OpenAI. We have some, and it really depends on the use case. If the use case is broader and we want the agent to have a little more flexibility in the way that it answers. For example, we have some clients that actually took their website, for example, and hooked it right into the AI. So if the caller starts asking about, well, who are you? Who's your firm? How long you been around? What do you focus on? What are your results? It'll actually query the broader internet as well as their website and say, okay, XYZ firm, we're known for the following things.
Yeah.
Some firms don't want that. Some firms want to keep it much more ring fenced and they want to use smaller LLM models. And the idea there is really more around efficiency, response. They just want to keep it tight. They want to keep it germane to the specific task at hand. So again, it depends on the use case, and then we'll just leverage the LLM as appropriate.
Yeah. The question every law firm is either going to want to ask or at least should ask is what's the security of all this? How do you, if you're bringing in all of this client data, how are you protecting confidentiality privilege?
Yeah. So one of the first things we did was in launching Lexafide is start the process around SOC 2 certification and HIPAA certification. Thankfully, as I mentioned earlier, we had some infrastructure already built through our portfolio of businesses to leverage that. So we had it in place, but we just went through that now. So we're SOC 2 and HIPAA certified with all of our infrastructure, all of our processing, all of our onboarding, things like that, all secure, all encrypted. We have a few different ways to address specific needs. We have a client now in Canada, for example. So there's some data residency issues that we had to address, but we're just going to leverage Amazon. Well, our AWS is our backbone for a lot of that. So yeah, very mindful of the security concerns of clients. It's obviously, without that, we're kind of out of business. So we're
Are the recordings retained or just the transcripts of the recordings?
It could be both. It could be both. And then on the recording front, up to date, we've been doing it and keeping the recordings ourselves. What's going to happen over time is that it's going to become too onerous to do that. So we're looking at some options in terms of like cold storage.
Yeah.
Put those calls over. They'll still be accessible, but won't run directly on our platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just for what's generally the pricing model, is it by the call or just a cloud subscription, or how do we do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're again coming into this market and competing with some of the big boys, as it were. We've created a model that's very simple, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's $2,500 per workflow per month, with some limitations on it. There's some token and minutes limitations on it, but we're making them very generous. We want to enter the market and not have people not use our product in fear of going over those overages. But the idea is to be affordable, to be easy to implement, to have some constraints. And if someone did come on our platform and start using it all day, all night, and racking up tons and tons of minutes, it's a good problem to have, and we'll have a different commercial discussion based on those overages. But yeah, that's the model. And as you add more workflows, it's another $2,500 if you add an additional workflow, for example.
Okay. And actually, one other question is, what's the setup? What's the deployment? What's involved in getting up and running on this?
Yeah, what we do is we identify the use case that a client wants to go ahead with, lead qualification, for example. We do basically a 30-day setup, and you can call it a pilot or whatever you want to call it, but it's basically 30 days. We work with them. We do any of the customizations. We get it live, basically go, no go at the end of that 30 days. It's been go so far, and then it just converts into a 1-year deal at that point. But we typically talk to the clients at least once a week during those 4 weeks leading up to the go, no go. And there's a little bit of homework on each side, obviously, that we need to do. But the first 2 calls is really kind of deeper discovery, really understanding the workflows, really understanding the integrations that are needed. And then the next 2 weeks is really testing. And then we'll do live testing right before the go live.
Anything else that you want people to know about this that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, we're just focused on creating a really, really good, stable product and keeping, I don't want to say that we have massive ambitions, but we're trying to keep our ambitions in those areas that I shared and continuing to just deliver for our clients in that regard. And I think we can get into a broader discussion someday, Bob, about what's happening in the marketplace and all the capitalization that's happening. And it's exciting to see it. I think there's inherent dangers in it. I think there's consolidation that's going to occur. Like I said earlier, I'm happy to kind of stand on the outside, let that fight happen, and then we're just going to do really solid, good business and satisfy our clients.
That makes sense. Thanks so much for coming on and showing us all about Lexafide today. It's really interesting.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate what you guys do every day and sharing the news of the industry.
All right. Well, be well and wish you much success.
Thanks, Bob.